Hello, and welcome back to Rube's Cozy Book Nook. Today I'm going to talk about my 2025 reads. I've got my top authors, my top series, and my top books. Now I'm going to put a disclaimer out there. The only thing I read is shifter romances, primarily werewolf romances. So that's probably all I'm going to talk about. You've been warned. Okay, so I use Storygraph to track what I read, and last year, 2025, I read 91 books. My original goal was 30 books, and then I was like, I wonder if I could double that. Ended up hitting 71 books, and then at work, we made like a mock goal of 100. I didn't make 100, but I did make 91. That's really impressive because I work full-time and I go to college part-time. I have no idea how I read that much. I really don't. So I use some of my wrap-up from 2025 on Storygraph to get some stats and information for you guys. So my top 3 authors were Krista Street, Jen L. Gray, and Tessa Hale. Those 3 authors, all on Kindle Unlimited. I'm pretty sure all 91 of my books was Kindle Unlimited because I read it on my phone and I can take that anywhere. That's probably how I got to 91. I just read everywhere. For Krista Street, I read 18 of her books. Jen L. Gray read 12, and Tessa Hale was 8. Tessa Hale was one that I found later on towards the end of the year, so I didn't read as many of her books. But I did like quite a few of what I read. Krista Street, there was a couple of her books. I'd been at the store, I think, and I saw Faded by Starlight, and I'd been really wanting to read it, but at the time I was only reading on Kindle Unlimited, and so I actually read a different series of hers. That series is called Supernatural Curse, and the first book is Wolf of Fire, and basically she's a witch and her twin sister kidnapped, and she hires this fire wolf to basically track down where her sister is at, and you have the whole witch, werewolf, shifter romance going on there. A lot of fated mates in her series. But I read that one. That series is 4 books. All 3 of the series I talk about for Krista Street all have 4 books in her series for each one. And so after I read that one, I moved on to Supernatural Community, which was another witch who has a bodyguard who is a werewolf, but in this one, she thinks that she's like the only witch in the world, so he kind of introduces her to the whole community. And I read both those series, and then I read Faded by Starlight, which is the Supernatural Institute series, and I didn't notice that it was by her, and I was like, this whole like framework and world is very similar because they have a Supernatural Institute, which is basically kind of like their governing police that does justice and track down bad guys, capture bad guys, that kind of stuff. Goes through this institute, so that whole framework in the world seemed familiar, and then I realized, oh hey, same author. So those were kind of like the top 3 series I had for her. Jen L. Gray was another one that I found shortly around the same time as Krista Street. She has 2 that are worth mentioning. One is Twisted Fates. That's a 3-book series. The first one's Destined Mates, and that one is basically she was taken as a girl. She doesn't really remember her family. And so she meets these 4 werewolves. This one is all werewolf shifters for this romance. Fated mates, finding your mate, that kind of thing, and learning about who she is. The other one is Wolf Moon Academy. And that first book is Shadow Mate. And that one actually was the first one I read of hers. And it was actually really interesting. They have kind of a democracy kind of governing government. And they have 4 members from 4 different packs from 4 different regions in the United States. And then they have their one kind of head honcho person who they kind of go through them. They kind of try to make it so that it's not biased in how they govern. And so she finds out that that's who she is and who her dad was, and she didn't really know who her dad was, and it was kind of like a secret thing, and she ended up at this college and wound up in the world and found her mate. So those 2 very short novels in those series. Again, only 3 books for each series. I think they're like 250 pages for each book, somewhere around then. Pretty basic, heavy on the romance, not heavy on the plot, but there is plot. But yeah, very heavy on the romance. The last one I found was Tessa Hale. The first one is Wolves of Crescent Creek. I was in a mood and I was like, when I'm in a slump, I just need to read some werewolf romances. So I typed that into Kindle Unlimited and it popped up with this one. She's part werewolf, part witch. And she's hiding from her dad, who's like a psychopath alpha wolf, out to get her, break her. He's ashamed of her, this whole thing. And she comes across a pack called the Crescent Creek Wolves. They can't sense her werewolf because she kind of like masks it. And so, again, fated mates. This one's actually really interesting because it has more magic in it than the whole shifter vibe. Reverse Harlem, 4 guys, 1 girl. But kind of like it. They're all like different. It's very interesting, actually. And then the other one was Royals of Kingwood Academy, which starts with Lost Elemental. That one, however, is not that is not a shifter book. That one is more of a magic, different realm. They have elementals who have elemental magic, and then if you have all 4 elemental magics, you're an aether. Except they had been all exterminated, basically, because the 4 rulers, 2 of them want to rule the realm. They don't want to be, because the premise is you have your aether, and then the 4 other kingdom heirs will mate with that aether. It'll be a whole group, and then they'll govern peacefully over the realm. Obviously, you have your rebellion and all that stuff that doesn't want it. And so that one's a 3-part series. Find out who she is, learns about her magic, learns about her mates, because she grew up in the human world, so she's not part of this. I really liked it. It was interesting. These were very good. All 3 of these authors, very good palate cleansers. If you want short, quick, funny, romantic books, these are good authors to look at for those. Moving on to my top series, there are 4 of them. So we have Cursed Legacies, which is by Morgan B. Lee. I really like that one. So that one, if you come into your magic, you go to this university and you have all different kinds of things. You have like dragons, witches, shifters, not just like werewolf shifters. You can have like a bear shifter, polar bear shifter, different kinds of shifters. You have incubus. The primary incubus for this one feeds on dreams. And so in this one, they all have curses, and in order to not get rid of your curse and not go crazy, you have to find your 5 people to go into your like mate bond and break your curse. And so that follows this. This one is a 3-book series as well, and lots of blood, lots of action. You do have a lot of romance in it, obviously, because mating. And you learn about the different families, the social hierarchy, how the system works, and all of that. You do have an introduction to their god system and their deities, which is very interesting. The other one of my top series is a book talk fan favorite, and it is the Psycho Shifter series, or the Cruel Shifter-verse series by Jasmine Mess. That one it's 6 books, but the first 3 follow one main character and her mates, and then the other 3 follow her friend and her mates. It kind of like tapers off to 2 separate things. So you follow the first 3, meet those people, do all of that stuff, and then the friend she meets in those 3, we follow her in the last 3. So 6, very psycho. The whole world is psychotic. The whole premise is psychotic. It is crazy. There are a lot of plot twists to it. A lot of action, confusion. It's very interesting. She did a really good job of developing a very dynamic world, but also being able to build onto that throughout each book that she adds to the series. My third top series is the Wolf King series. Everyone knows about the Wolf King. If you don't, you're living under a rock. I like that it's not modern, very like medieval style. I'm guessing the premise takes place in kind of like Scotland, because you have like your Southlands, which is nice and warm and more human based, and then as you go north, you get more into your clans with your werewolves and your castles and your Celts. No electricity, which was an interesting take for a romance, because I don't typically read books that are more medieval style, but I really liked this one and it was really good. So I read the second one, which is The Night Prince, and that one might be my favorite. That one was so good, and it was so good because you fall in love with the one guy in the first book, and then you meet this other guy, and then the second book kind of makes you want to fall in love with him. And I don't know if it's because I have a problem with falling in love with the villain, thinking he's a good guy and he ends up being the bad guy, but I'm still in love with him. That could be my problem. But I am biting my nails waiting for the third book to come out, because I want to know what happens, because it is good. I highly recommend reading this one. Very not too mainstream, kind of different, very, medieval style. It's not like a typical shifter book from what I typically read on Kindle Unlimited. And then the last one series that I liked was the Supernatural Curse, which I had previously talked about already, which was the Wolf of Fire, which was the first book. I absolutely loved that whole one. It was so good and very dynamic. You introduce different creatures in different parts of the world, and like the black market and magic spells, and it even has a different world with a different species that kind of like ran away here. So in one of those books, you meet them and kind of learn about their dynamic and hate them, obviously. But yeah, it was really good. Had to be in my top series. So those are my top 4 series for 2025. My top books that I read, there were only 3. Now keep in mind, I also only read series apparently. I don't know why. I guess I didn't find any good standalone books, so I only read series. The first one was The Coven by Harper L. Woods. So I read The Coven and The Curse. Those are her first 2 books. And the third one is called The Damned. I liked the first one so much that I had to read the second one. This one's really good. She's a witch who falls in love with Lucifer, and this isn't just like a guy named Lucifer. This is like the literal Lucifer, and she goes to this school. She was warned never to go to this school. She ends up there, and so she goes to this school, and they have different tiers of witch magic, and so based on what kind of magic you have goes into which tier you're in, and which like dorm you have, and where you go in that aspect. And it's all family oriented, so these tiers that you have were created by different house families, and then their descendants go to this school. The only issue I have with this series was book 3, which does not follow Lucifer, and I'm only here for Lucifer, so I'm sure this year I will attempt to read that one, but I didn't pick it up. I bought it, told my dad, this is what you're getting me for Christmas, and then I got it for Christmas. And I was kind of disappointed because I didn't read anything into it. I just assumed we were continuing on with what we left off with in The Curse, which really shook me. That was a really big cliffhanger, and I was really upset about that. And then it didn't follow the same characters. We're following someone else, and I was kind of upset about that. So until I calm down from that, I won't be reading it. My second one that I really liked was The Night Prince. I don't want to say the author's name because I'm going to butcher it, but I'm assuming everyone knows about the Wolf King series and The Night Prince. I already talked a little bit about The Night Prince. Again, have a thing for the dark, broody, evil guy. And you know what? Sometimes the dark, broody, evil guy isn't actually the evil guy, and he's the good guy who's like, who hurt you, I'll kill them. And then you have like a protector who's hot and broody, and I can't complain. The last one on my top book reads was part of the Lightlark series. If you don't know anything about the Lightlark series, you're living under a rock and you're missing out. This is by Alec Astor, and the Lightlark series revolves around a centennial where they're trying to break the curse that was put on to Lightlark, and it follows this girl, Isla. I'm probably butchering that name, but that's okay. And so we kind of follow her and how they're going to break the curse. And so that was the first book. And then you have the third book I'm on, which I just finished this year, was Sky Shade. And this one follows her trying to figure out what she's going to do, because she's trying to remember, because Rem took her memories away, and she's trying to figure out where her heart lies, what she wants to do, how she's going to fix things, because she kind of made a mess of things. And then, in this one, we're figuring all that out, trying to figure out who's killing people. They think it's her. We think it's her. And so we're also trying to figure that out. And, it's very crazy. A lot of world building through those 3 books, but it's also really good. They're not super long, and I don't know what it's called, but I have it, and I guess so does Alec Astor, where when you read something, you cannot visualize what you're reading. And so I fell in love with this series because the way she does descriptions is very point blank. It lays it all out there, so you don't have to do a lot of imagination, imagery in your head for what's going on, because it's there on the paper. It basically explains everything for you, which is very helpful for those of us who have a blank canvas we don't know how to paint on with our mind, which kind of sucks. So that was my wrap up for 2025. And hopefully I will be able to post more for 2026 and keep up on this channel. But I do work full-time and go to school part-time. So we'll see. This year I'm hoping to read my physical TBR list. So I won't probably be reading as many books, but I'll actually have them handy so I can show you. But yeah, so that was my 2025 reads. So if any of you read any of those books and have anything to say, leave a comment. I'd be interested to see what you have to say.